What is the LRA? LRA is the Lord's Resistance Movement by the leader Joseph Kony. He is like the God, they worship him. The army is about the kids. Why we don't know about it, and why we always ask people and they do not know about it, and only know about ISIS, Jabhat Nusra, and the Qaeda. The media is concentrating about these without mentioning the others. LRA is founded in Congo, Southern Sudan, North Uganda, and Central Africa. The leader Joseph Kony is like a god, that he is always right. He brings the kids as the army. They violate the human rights. They always seek for revenge, to kill people, to make massacres, and special, they always violate the rights of all people. And wherever they are under pressure, they go and kill the killers. They don't have a vision for the future. We always see that every group have a vision, want to change. No, this group doesn't have a vision. The best thing is that they want to control. They are against the government and do not need. The facing problem of the society there in Africa, and because this is a big situation for them, the African Union is one of the unions that are one of the solutions that want to change this situation into the better one. The other thing, or the other one who is playing a role for the solution is the United States of America, especially in the Obama administration. Also, because this is for a four countries problem, they are also working in a positive way to always talk with them, but without having a real solution. So Obama, as the United States, worked in a way that he can stop them from growing. So cutting the military on them, cutting the weapons, and working on the people of this region, of the African countries, to go to war with them. The strategy of the USA is about 4 points. The first one is to let the people to fight the LRA. The second point is to let Joseph Kony to go away and escape. The third one is to protect the people from the LRA. The fourth one is to help the people from what Joseph Kony and LRA have done to them. They started to work, and it started to give them solutions and to end these problems one step by step. But it was too much costly, so they stopped it in 2017 and got away from it. Then the African Union started to work and have a much big responsibility for it, as long as it is about 55 countries in the Union, and sent about 5,000 soldiers to these countries that have the LRA. The other union that worked is the...
When we are talking about the LRA, we have to focus on the idea that they aren't simply a terrorist organization. To say the least, even though their effects go back from the 1990s, they are more of a decentralized army that inhabit a huge deserted area. Most of the time we are talking about forests. So when we are actually focusing on raids on towns and cities, we aren't talking about raids on modern houses and buildings, but actually attacks on towns that are made up of roundabouts, of huts. And unfortunately, this is one of the main reasons why developing and developed societies simply cannot comprehend the intensity of the situation. Of course, alongside the lack of media coverage in there. The UPDF the Ugandese People Defense Force is the main army that is actually fighting the LRA in the region. So the events that we are actually gonna be talking about go around the years 2000 and 2006 approximately, and thus with the Ugandese army, they have been fighting the LRA actually starting in South Sudan. Simply, the borders between them were in a way open. Thus, alongside due to the terrorism in the area, the Ugandese army were actually able to attack the LRA directly. But with every offensive, the LRA actually retaliated on both the army and on the locals. And in the end, this is alongside multiple awareness campaigns when the international community actually started focusing on the situation. Operation Iron Fist is what the UPDF has called their huge assault on Kony's army in the year 2002 in the region of South Sudan now. And it was indeed a complete failure. Because not only have they not succeeded in completing any of their hopeful objectives, whether it was to kill or capture Kony, whether it was to eliminate a good part of his army, whether it was to eliminate supplies that they had, they have actually worsened it for themselves. Because they have suffered a lot of losses, the UPDF that is. They they were met with heavy retaliation. The elimination of many centralized bases have changed the way the LRA operates from a more centralized state to a more fluid state, so much that they have stopped operating only in South Sudan, but have also extended to the north of Uganda. Moreover, with this retaliation, the Ugandese people have also met multiple, genocides, let's say, where Joseph Kony wanted to retake what he lost from the operation. Pretty much, he refilled his army with new soldiers, mostly child soldiers, and also has taken their supplies and killing a lot of townsfolk. Now, this isn't the only genocide that the LRA would commit, because later on, with a lot of peace talks, apologies, especially after the international community's involvement now, from one side, the people wanted to move, officials wanted to move the whole situation to the ICC, but the other side didn't want to because they wanted to focus more on peace negotiations and they were afraid of any future genocide that might be committed. We have to remember and focus on that the governments there are weak. The UPDF has mentioned on multiple occasions that they were able to defeat Kony's army, and yet they were only met with defeat. Okay. Betty Bigombe is one of the main figures that has appeared during these peace talks, simply because she is the only person that is trusted by both the LRA and the African Coalition, whatever you want to call it. Now, all diplomatic talks have failed. Anything leading to peace has failed, and for many reasons. One we may mention is that all ceasefires that have been implemented have been broken by both sides. There have been many genocides during these peace talks. For example, on one occasion, an army official has mentioned that they would easily beat the LRA, but instead they were met with a dozen deaths and a couple dozen more injured. Another, and the most important thing we should remember is simply we don't know what the LRA stands for anymore, because they have claimed that they are standing against the government of Uganda and that they are standing against they want to implement their religious ideal, their laws, the Ten Commandments. But during these peace talks, it has appeared on multiple occasions that this is not the case. They have they have nothing to hold their claim. And on many occasions also, Joseph Kony himself has appeared that he isn't interested in participating in these peace.
Good morning, Steve. Thank you, Bakr and Marwan, for the information you just gave us. We're gonna dig deeper into the solution of this conflict.
So let's start. As Marwan and Bakr mentioned previously, the LRA has been going on for years, if not decades. A lot of strategies and approaches have been taken regarding this conflict, as they mentioned, and yet, regardless, we're still facing it till this day. So, as a group, what we did is that we tried to look at this conflict from a different perspective, different point of view, and different approach. And we realized that to fight your enemy, you must first understand your enemy. So maybe our plan will not be as expected as previous plans before, but we're going to try to tackle it and study it from different areas and different aspects. And of course, we're going to be mentioning the time frame, the logistics, and the expected obstacles of each step that we're going to be making.
So this conflict has been going on for decades, as Jana mentioned. The LRA is more like an ideology. We cannot eliminate ideologies, but however we can control them and control their influence and spread in Africa. So that's how we're gonna treat this conflict, like a pandemic. For that, our plan has two phases: what happens above the table and what happens under the table.
So, yes, absolutely right. Since we're treating this as a pandemic, we cannot expect the complete elimination of the LRA, of course. And as we know, each solution has a certain time frame. And we took in class that conflicts need complex measurements, and simple conflicts need simple measurements. Same thing with the time frame. You have to be realistic. And we're looking here at a time frame of 4 years in our plan as a minimum. And with that, we start with the first year.
In our first year in solving this issue or this conflict, we're gonna first recognize all the strategies that were used before, like all the rehabilitation centers, the medical centers, hospitals, therapists, educational centers, and on-the-ground work of troops and hospitals.
Yes, because you can't neglect past successes. Like if they're making any help, we have to keep them on the ground anyway.
So starting off, the LRA conflict is a very complex one. So in order for us to understand it better, I'm gonna link it to the onion map. So like any other party in a conflict, the LRA have their own position and interests and needs. So the position of the LRA is started first as a rebelling group against the oppressive government, following the 10 amendments of the Bible. And then it changed, of course, but their interests are still the same. Their interests are power. Their needs are the most important, which are their security, identity, and many other things. We're going to discuss them later. Anyway, so our first point of the first stage of our plan is the investments on the borders of the 3 countries, Uganda, Congo, and Central Africa. These investments are intended to produce opportunities for the locals there, to aid the countries, and to help businesses. They are funded by NGOs and by local funds in general. So what's actually happening under the table is that we are going to collect data from these investments on the borders. We're going to control the borders of the 3 countries that the LRA get their aids and illegal funds from. So data collection and control, and the first step of controlling the LRA is what's most important for us in this step.
Yes. Definitely, yes.
Yeah.
So to expand more about this issue, the point of the investment on the border is one of the most important steps of this whole plan. Why? Because, as he mentioned, the people in this region in Africa, we have the LRA, which is in Africa, and we know Africa is a poor continent itself. So their needs is not only social needs, as in to be belonging or security, etc. They actually have basic needs, which are the material needs, the food, the water, the shelter. So They want to be empowered to secure their survival, not just their social belonging. And from this aspect, we focus on the economic aspect, which is that from these investments, which Ali mentioned, that we have more jobs, which can help make sure that the civilians resort to these businesses rather than the LRA themselves. And this is a one-way issue to weaken the LRA as a whole. Like, we don't need you anymore. There's other options to get money, you know? And moreover, like you mentioned, that under the table, it's gonna be a source of data. Now, the logistics of this step are mostly, we could say, the most expensive. Why? We're going to focus on these investments, and they're going to be funded by NGOs already located on the ground who want to help this issue, the UN, and also it can be from MNCs as well. The investments could be MNCs themselves to increase anonymity inside the places. And of course, these businesses can be local businesses to actually support local. And we're looking here at a budget between $1.5 to $3 million, but this is the most it gets because we think that this is a very important step because we're targeting the roots of this problem, which is also economic. Okay, so I want to remind you guys that we're still in the first year of the plan. A lot of things are going to be happening on a simultaneous level. Aside from the investments, this other step would be what we call the BBC mission, which is the Betty Bigambi cloning. And personally, I find this step a very exciting one because Betty Bigambi as an individual has been an inspiration and a very main figure in this conflict, for she alone as an individual was able to pull out the LRA from northern Uganda. So this proved that soft power does have effect in this conflict as a whole. So why not use it more? So in this step, we're going to be training and cloning Betty Bigambi into tens of people. We're going to be teaching these people emotional intelligence, the negotiations, how to set the atmosphere of negotiation. And we have realized that the LRA tend to become more frustrated or angry when they realize that the people that are trying to negotiate with them are from outside countries. So when they see that the ones who are willing to become the mediator, if you could say, or the one who wants to negotiate are from the same blood, that would be kind of more psychologically calming for them. Like, there's no competition, there's no manipulation or possibilities of manipulation, so there's more trust between them. Like, you are from my land too, you're not from the outside, there's no agenda, or maybe there is, but it's not as clear as outside agendas. And so this step would be training on negotiation, and we know that soft power does have its effect when we have the right atmosphere for it. So NGOs will take it as their duty to train diplomacy, to train the tricks of how to talk, how to act with the enemy, and of course to find a common ground. And here we reflect to the name of the plan, which is rewarding defeat. Our notion of rewarding defeat is that we're both gonna lose, us and them, but our gift from that would be finding common grounds and reaching a common solution through these negotiations.
Aside from teaching soft power, NGOs and all the countries that are going, or the parties that are going to interfere in this conflict are gonna start teaching self-defense classes and are gonna start recruiting locals for protection of their villages and handing them arms. Not randomly, but specific people that are trained for this protection.
And trusted, of course.
Yes. So this is gonna help us a lot in the second step of our mission. The second step is called faking victory. Now here starts the action of our plan and starts the real work actually.
Right.
First, we're gonna pull out all the troops that are already existing on the ground suddenly and quickly. These groups, by pulling them out, we're kind of
creating a shock.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not something
It's a
expected.
mysterious feeling and fear for
Right.
the LRA. So they start asking questions like, why did they pull all the troops out suddenly, and are they gonna attack us or not? So these questions are gonna start to be posed
Rise
by
up.
the
Right.
LRA. So and the troops actually, by existing on the ground, they give legitimacy or more
Recognition.
recognition for the LRA, and they give them the sense of being feared
Or
by the
powerful,
people.
like
Yeah,
we're here because you're powerful, which is
true. So by this step, we are gonna spend.
we're gonna like raise the mysteriousness of our act. Like since we said, like Ali said, there's gonna be more questions as like, did they pull out because they're gonna attack, or did they pull out because we won, or like khalas because they just don't wanna, they don't know what to do anymore. So here we use propaganda as a tool to rise in more questions, more pressure, more intense atmospheres, as in disinformation. Like we're gonna attack, but before we say the notion that we're gonna attack, we're gonna be practicing the BBC mission, which is the use of soft power. If the soft power doesn't work,
Which is not gonna work.
which is not gonna work for the reason of not because soft power is not gonna work, it might work in some areas though.
I think because they've lost trust in
negotiations, but also because it's been a long time and a lot of people have tried negotiations. So in case this doesn't work, we're not going to put an absolute end to it. If this doesn't work, we're going to give it the notion that these people are telling the LRA that they're going to attack and you should do something about it. And by that, the LRA are going to have to find or unite more in a certain territory so that they are ready to counteract.
Because actually, one of the biggest problems we're facing in this conflict is the dispersion of the LRA into 3 countries from the first moment they've started trying to resolve the conflict.
Right. And they use it as a tool that, but again, they want a state, so they can't stay dispersed all their lives. They want power, so they can't form a state, each one in a place. And when we pull out, we give them a new chance, like you can now reunite and try what you want to try. But then once they reunite, something else happens.
Here actually is when the importance of the recruited locals for
Civilians.
protection comes, because by pulling out troops, we have no protection over the civilians. That's why recruited groups for protection are needed in the villages they are in to protect from any attacks from the LRA.
That are happening.
So the notion that's gonna be given here is like that we're gonna strike them. But when we give them this idea of by propaganda and disinformation,
Or
basically,
threat.
yes, we're technically threatening them. So we give people or the people of LRA incentives to surrender, basically. One of these incentives is immunity deals. It starts with immunity deals, but if they come and save a number of children, for example, we're going to provide them with immunity deals and an amount of money that's going to help them. And here it's important to know that the amount of money is not supposed to be very high, because we're talking about Africa. So any small amount of money would be fine with them. Yeah. So we will strike, and this is the notion that we will strike, and we know that you're in LRA for like interests and for your needs.
And for money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, we're gonna support you with all your needs, with jobs, with money, with shelters. So these are the incentives in order for them to submit to our demands.
Yeah. And incentives are very important when it comes in front of a threat, because now there's also, they really strike, and what if we die? So they're going to take incentives way more seriously. Moreover, it's something in a simultaneous manner. We're going to be doing something that I was shocked that it's going to be actually that important. 2 days ago, I was asking several members of my family and friends if they've ever heard about the LRA. Their answer was, no, what is that? They've never even seen it or anything. So at some point on the social media, the notion of LRA has faded away. So what we do is that we revive it. We revive a certain hashtag, we revive a certain trend on Twitter, on Instagram. We have so many platforms to make sure that the LRA are back to life, that there's a lot of pressure coming from the outside world against them. and that would increase the pressure on them to resort to incentives that we already handed out to them. And social media itself today, I consider it personally as a very powerful tool, and I could see it a weapon in this case, because a lot of steps have been taken by several NGOs or even governments after the pressure amounted on them by the international scope and the media itself, because now it has way more effect than 2004, 2005, where actually the government itself against the LRA was formed because of that, because of the social media, and we can end it in the same way by the media itself.
Yes, and the social media is actually really important as well, because it shows which party is striking and which party is not. Which party is using soft diplomacy and which one is using hard diplomacy. So technically what we're going to try to do at the same time of doing all these together, we will be forming a UN committee or a committee under the UN that connects basically or pulls together all the parties that are taking part of in the conflict.
And that's a lot of parties.
Yes, so all the NGOs or the parties with the government, with the army of the different countries that the LRA is present in. So collecting all these parties together will form a better organization of the plan, and will better give, like, the actions would be organized more.
Right, and since it's a multiplayer conflict, it gives actually a two-party conflict. LRA and who's against it. It's not like the Uganda, Sudanese government, Central Africa. It's two. It's messy. It's messy. So what we have to do is tune it down and make it more clear who's against who. And our plan itself has the notion of rewarding defeat in a way that we show that we're both willing to sacrifice a bit to reach a solution. But if they're not going to do that, we're going to play the hard way, and this is the way to do so.
So basically we need to take into consideration the weapons that we are giving to the locals there for protection. Right. And also we need to take into consideration the incentives we're offering. But I think this, like money-wise, but I think this wouldn't be spending as the money spent on troops.
Yeah, definitely.
The budget is between $20,000 to $30,000 for this whole part, and it's gonna take up to 6 months. The third part of this plan is the drawing the siege. Our plan is not to eliminate the LRA, it's to control their influence, as we mentioned. So in addition to all the propaganda by disinformation, the social media campaign, and the data collected by the investments on the borders, and we technically are trying to locate the LRA in a specific territory where they collected themselves for defense.
Which is expected by them after our pullout.
That's basically the whole point of the steps we've taken. So then after that, we're gonna talk about an army, a united army, the United Army of Central Africa, the UACA. So
this army basically is supposed to further the location of the LRA through real intelligence, and especially locating the head, which is Joseph Kony. Yet, you might think why throughout our whole project, I think you're waiting for us to talk about the kids and Joseph Kony. Now, what we are doing is we're not following what everyone else did. Of course, the kids are important, but they are inside the LRA right now. And that's one basic reason why our point is not to attack the LRA, but limit the influence. Because we're going to try to save the kids through incentives. We're not going to attack the LRA. We're going to siege them into as much as possible in a certain territory. And we're going to protect who's outside the LRA, the other kids that are in a threat of being abducted in the future. This is our main goal, saving the kids who are going to be abducted. And in this sense, we are going to try through the incentives, and we're not going to attack, and this is one way to save the children inside.
Yes.
And Joseph Kony, we don't have to locate him as an individual. Of course, it would be a good shot, but he is fueled by his influence and his army. So if we tackle the army itself, if we don't put him as the headline of the LRA mission, which is find Joseph Kony, then the mission will take a different approach into digging into the main reasons why this all happened in the first place, which is not Joseph Kony, but his ideology.
Even if he was like eliminated, his ideology will stay, and
basically
the people,
like terrorism.
Exactly, the LRA people are gonna still follow the same ideology as.
I mean,
Joseph
Osama
Kony.
bin Laden died. Did terrorism stop?
Exactly.
It's not the point. And yet, most of the resolutions that are given to the UN have it as locate Joseph Kony, as if it's the
Yes.
solution, which is not the point here.
Jana, let me stress here again on the importance of real-time intelligence,
Definitely.
because like we're not neglecting the whole protocol that happens in conflict resolution. We're just adding to it.
Yes.
We're adding steps that weren't tried before.
Unexpected. I'm not gonna say unexpected, but it's more of a shock. Like, this is the point of it. It's been going on for so long that even the LRA are sitting watching TV and going like, okay, nothing's gonna happen because it's been decades and everyone's exhausted and no one has time for us. There's the corona and there's I don't know what going on and there's everything happening all over the world. They think that they're forgotten. So the shock is gonna bring back the sense that we're still gonna attack you. You're still not gonna get away with this. And
Yes,
yeah.
and again, I'm just stressing out the important points of this. The siege is really important because the whole power of the LRA is from abducting children.
Right.
So this siege will prevent these abductions. Will prevent the LRA from attacking villages and recruiting their army from children.
Right.
So we're working. This is a very sensitive issue because our main goal out of this is like weakening the LRA and stopping the children abduction or the army form of children.
Right. And I'd just like to add on here that even though the solution doesn't feel as vivid or as victorious as most other solutions recommended to the USIP, but I believe basically it's the most realistic. Like, you can't wish on on a huge thing and then not actually dig deep into the main problem of it. And this is one point we took in conflict resolution: find the roots. So, as a conclusion, each plan or each strategy and each approach in conflict resolution has its pros and its cons, and this is a fact. Like, we cannot just be 100% sure that everything's going to work, and this is why we have obstacles that might be faced or the risk factors of each step we take. And one of them, and it mostly happens in most cases, is time management. And this is why our plan is 4 years, not 3 years, despite being we're having 3 steps. 4 years is for in case of unexpected measures or unexpected issues happen. Yeah, maybe even a crisis. So we have to take into consideration that not everything is going to go on the clock. And moreover, there is the risk factor of collateral damage. Maybe if we pull out, the shock is read in a different manner, right?
Yeah.
Like, as in maybe they get more dispersed.
But I think, Jana, the collateral damage is something we cannot run from.
It's not going to be worse than it is, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And it's not going to be worse with all the past plans
that already happened. Now, the thing is that there might be attacks, but of course we have talked about the recruited individuals that are supposed to be fighting off. Yet, what if the weapons are not enough, etc.? This is also a risk factor, but we're gonna try our best. Everything's gonna be.
And the signals by pulling out troops suddenly might have different outcomes or different reactions from the LRA.
Yeah.
Like, instead of relocating themselves in one territory, they might disperse more. So that's why we have many other backup plans.
This is a plan B, plan C issue. Yet this is our plan A. And if we're like, if we're not going to be trying plan A, we cannot get to plan B or plan C. And this whole project is based on the plan A. And moreover, Our plan A actually is negotiations, but we have like a 90% chance of that not working, so we go to the next steps. And last but not least, this is why our approach is that what's above the table and what's under the table, for the reason that when things change under the table, the outcomes above the table are different, and even the steps are different. And this is why you have to be attentive throughout the resolution, and maybe
And not necessarily bad outcomes from
not necessarily.
above the table.
Maybe negotiations would surprisingly work, like Betty
Yes.
Bigambe's, because at some point conflict is surprising after
Yes,
all.
and all the investments are not at all bad for the countries. Like, of course, they are above the table strategies, but they are helpful for the societies.
They are root solutions indirectly, and maybe at some point we won't need them as under the table tools later on. Maybe they can turn into the main solution itself. So I would like to end this in a way that we are trying the shock measure with hopes that it goes according to plan. If it doesn't, there's a plan B, plan C, plan D, but we hope plan A works because we've already kind of tackled root problems economically. And funding-wise, it's very fundable regarding everything. I believe is more fundable than having troops on the ground. It's always more expensive to do so.
And one last thing I want to add is that with the siege, even if there are still groups outside the siege that we put, the connection between them and the main group of the LRA is broken.
Definitely.
So they wouldn't be organized as they were before. The situation for them would be very chaotic, which is advantageous for us.
Yes, and they don't get stronger without abducting children. And we're kind of stopping, our aim is stopping the abduction of children in the future, more than saving children inside, which is also a very big factor because all the other solutions mostly focused on the kids inside the LRA. Unfortunately, no one can save everybody, but we have to try and save as much as possible. Thank you for listening to us,
Thank you so
and I
much.
hope you liked our plan, and we're open to any questions.